Hello, I am the Enthusiast, and today I will be reviewing Maxx Force at Six Flags Great America. Now, Six Flags Great America is one of those parks that doesn't have, in my opinion, a clear-cut number two. And Maxx Force does nothing but add to that pick of what's the second best ride. So, Maxx Force is, by far, in my opinion at least, one of the best launch coasters I've personally experienced. And I think it looks to be one of the best. It looks to have one of the best launches in the world. I mean, considering the fact that there are few S&S air launch coasters like it, and considering the fact that the only other one in the United States is Powder Keg, this launch is really not like anything else you could really find in the United States right now. And it is such an amazing thing to have this coaster come to my home park. So, Maxx Force is one of those rides that just kind of done quickly. I feel like that's kind of been a trend with Great America's newer editions, stuff like Goliath and Maxx Force and the Joker. They're all rides that are really short, but I somewhat sweet other than Joker. But so Maxx Force, in my opinion, was a great addition. We needed another launch coaster. A launch coaster is a bit more intense than vertical velocity, which, in my opinion, vertical velocity's launch is kind of forceless. I mean, you can agree or disagree with me on that one. I don't really care. But, in my opinion, launch isn't the main point of vertical velocity. But, so, I have, two main complaints for this ride before we get into the actual ride experience. That is, one, the fact that it seems to break down every 30 seconds. Like, Maxx Force, in my opinion, is almost more unreliable than an Intamin, which is insane because I thought S&S was a bit more reliable as a manufacturer, but I guessed wrong, sadly. But that's the first complaint, and the second complaint is there's zero shade in the queue line, and the line is easily an hour plus every single time. Maxx Force is always an hour plus wait. And if you go on a sunny day, there's no shade in the queue line, so you just have the sun beating down on you while you're sitting in line, which is just possibly the most annoying thing to possibly happen at an amusement park, sitting in a long line and have no shade whatsoever. But other than those two complaints, don't really have any more complaints. I mean, yeah, it's not the most beautiful area. The grass hasn't completely grown back in yet. I mean, there's concrete, I could care less about that, to be honest, because I care more about for the actual ride experience, and that's what we're going to start talking about right now. So, Maxx Force, in my opinion, is the most intense coaster to Great America, and that is one of the reasons why I love it so much. I mean, for starters, you have that incredible launch, and I'll tell you this, it is one of the most, it's not, what's the word for it? It's, I guess, one of the most eerie launches I've ever experienced. With most launch coasters, you sit there, you kind of know when the ride's gonna go. For the most part, you kind of know where Maxx Force is gonna launch. I mean, there's the ride rocks forwards, backwards, waits a couple seconds and goes. You kind of know around the time it launches. But there's just something about moving up to the launch track really slowly and ominously that helps set the stage for Maxx Force. And if anyone has ever rode Maxx Force at night, which if you haven't, you should do, and if you can ride Maxx Force when it's dark, it's an experience you will never forget, because at nighttime, sitting on the launch track, rolling slowly out to that launch track, 2 miles an hour, slowly creeping up on the launch track, looking down the launch track and seeing absolutely nothing but pitch black darkness, looking like you're about to be launched into an abyss, is one of the most eerie but also incredible things ever. And in my opinion, it's one of the things that makes Maxx Force, I'd say, more intense or more crazy than the launch coaster, is the fact that you really don't know when it's going to launch. Now, I know when the initial POV came out, there was a little warning sound, and in my experience, you do not hear that warning sound at all. I think I heard it maybe once, but that's about it. But for the most part, it's complete silence. And then the launch happens. The most incredible part of Maxx Force, without a doubt, is the launch. If you think there's another part of Maxx Force that's better, you're kind of crazy. You need some help. But, so, the thing that makes Maxx Force's launch so incredible is it's probably one of the hardest feelings to describe, because, in my opinion, I have not experienced another launch like it. On everything I've ridden. I've ridden quite a few launch coasters. Like, I've ridden rides like Top Thrill Drags, which is probably the most notable launch coaster I've ridden. And, in my opinion, this felt nothing like Top Thrill Drag's first launch. This is a launch that is absolutely incredible and balls to the wall intensity. I mean, in my opinion, the way I describe the launch is like in a cartoon or something, when someone gets hit by something and like their body flies forward but their skeleton stays behind for like a couple seconds. You know, it like takes you a second of realization to realize you're going forwards. That's how intense the launch is. And on top of that, it has a decently long launch track, so that positive G-force is sustained for such a long period of time, gluing you to your seat. And in my opinion, you really don't realize what's happening till you get to the top of the dog tongue element, which is another really nice, which in my opinion, the dog tongue element after the launch is really fun. It's a fun element. It delivers some. It's not exactly hang time because you're not hanging upside down. You're kind of hanging to the side. It's kind of weird to understand or explain because it's not hang time, but it's technically hang time, you know? So, and that's kind of a thing with both of Maxx Force's double inversion elements. It's not exactly hang time, it's like sideways hang time. You know, it's just weird. But another thing that was incredible about the dog tongue element is I remember I went, and the night I got my night ride on Maxx Force, I also managed to, it was crazy because you look out and you're at the top of the dog tongue element and you can see the entire park lit up, and it's one of the few times I truly really looked at the park when it was lit up, which was kind of crazy because there's rides like Raging Bull or Goliath that are massive and you have time to look out when you're on the lift hill. But for some reason I noticed it more when I was on Maxx Force. I don't know why, but I did. And the ride comes down, swooping down over next to the launch track, and then it enters probably the second best part of the ride. Is easily the Heartline Roll. Heartline Roll, ZOG Roll, whatever you really want to call it, whatever they're gonna call it, because it's technically a Heartline Roll, but and I mean, do we really know the names of elements anymore? I mean, parks are just trying to make up elements just so they can say it's the world's first. So I mean, like, is it really a Heartline Roll? Is it in white twist? Hell, it's a Cobra Roll at this point. So it's an incredible element that gives some crazy whip. It's gotta have some of the best whip I've ever experienced. Which is crazy because Batman the Ride's in the same park, and Batman's corkscrews are absolutely bonkers whip-wise. And I'd say Maxx Force's Heartline Roll has more whip than that. And it is crazy just to whip for that at crazy high speeds. Then you come up to the double inversion element. It's just like the dog tongue, it's kind of just there. I don't really care much for it. It gives that sideways hang time thing. And then you come down to the brakes. Now, this ride is like 30 seconds with no joke. Like, you go, you launch, dog tongue, roll, double inversion, you're done. Like, and the hardest part for me is this is such a fun ride, and that launch is absolutely incredible. The hardest part, though, is waiting in line for over an hour for 30 seconds. And that launch is like for 3 of those seconds. It's like I really ride Maxx Force for the launch if I'm being 100% honest. I'm pretty sure most people do too. But it's painful to have to wait for it. It's one of the things that, other than the fact that it breaks down 24/7, it's one of the things that makes me not really want to ride Maxx Force. Now, I know I've been talking how Maxx Force is all high and mighty and how it's a good ride. It's a good ride! No, don't get me that wrong. Is it worth waiting for? Is really where it comes down to. If you have to wait like over an hour for it, it's really not worth it. I feel like that goes for, because, you know, there's other rides in the park that are short, mainly like Goliath, but Goliath has more than just one element that's good. You know, it's hard because a ride like Goliath has an incredible first drop. The turnarounds are just funky and fun. It has incredible hang time and air time. Maxx Force has a launch and a whippy inversion, and that's about where the goodness ends. So, as much as this ride is fun, I have to say, if you used to wait over an hour for it, it's not really worth the wait in my opinion. And also, chances are if you have to wait over an hour for it, it's gonna break down. From just someone who, from experience, almost every single time I've waited over an hour for it, it breaks down to the point that I've gotten a total of 4 rides on Maxx Force, and for the about 2 years technically 2 years that's been open, I've only gotten a total of 4 rides on it. So it's breaking down almost every single time. I haven't even been able to get on Maxx Force this year yet. I've been to Great America twice this year, and I plan on going one more time soon. I'm not sure exactly when. And I almost want to make it a point to get on Maxx Force again because I miss it. But if it comes down to it, I've gotten rides on Maxx Force, and because it's at my home park, it's not a ride that I really beg to get on. If Maxx Force is over an hour wait, I'm probably not gonna ride it just because, if I have to wait an hour for something, I'm gonna go wait an hour for Raging Bull, Or I'd actually rather go wait in line for Goliath than Maxx Force. Now, just final thoughts and opinions and stuff about Maxx Force. Maxx Force, incredible ride. If you go to Great America, try to get on it, but just be warned, the ride will break down at least about every hour, I'd say. That's pretty much what I've experienced. And on top of that, if you have to wait a super long line for it, it's really not worth it. Maxx Force, in my opinion, is a ride that you should wait till the end of the day to do when the line is short. If you have to wait in a long line for Maxx Force, it's not worth it anymore. So, as much as it sounds negative, it's not. Maxx Force is a good ride. I don't know how many times I'm going to stress it. Maxx Force is a good ride. But these are just my opinions about Maxx Force. This is The Enthusiast. Goodbye.